So imagine this, you're applying for your dream job and you're damn confident about your skills and you've got the experience as well. But when it comes to the interview, that's where things start to get a little bit shaky and you start to become unsure. You start to become unsure if you're the right person or not. Sometimes you might even feel like, maybe I don't have the skills, whereas you know you do because you've taken up certain roles, you've taken up roles in the past that are actually right there. Maybe you've even done a couple of projects that exactly match that job description. It's all coming down to that interview, and you're very unsure about that interview just because you might not be confident about your English speaking skills or the interview in general. So in this video I'm going to go over a few tips that are going to allow you to do much better in those interviews, to speak up confidently and to know in your heart that you're well prepared for that, because that feeling makes a big difference in how your interview does. So number one is going to be preparation, guys. Preparation is your best friend. And when I say preparation, I very specifically mean understanding what that job role requires, having a feeling, or maybe even asking the recruiter beforehand what is expected of you in the first 3 months or maybe 6 months. Also, preparation can mean knowing the history of the company, spending an hour or two on the company's website, understanding what projects they are doing. So let's say you're applying for a marketing position. It would be a great idea to do a little bit of research on what kind of campaigns are they running these days. Are those campaigns performing well for these guys or not? What kind of other marketing activity are they doing? So you'd end up going to their social media platforms, checking how they are doing on socials. Are they posting regularly or not? What kind of posts, etc. So just do that initial bit of preparation and that will make you feel confident. And I'll talk about confidence in a couple minutes, but it's extremely important for you to go into that interview well prepared. It will not only make you feel good about yourself, but it will also give them the understanding that yes, this is the guy that's actually not afraid to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty. And that's the kind of people that usually companies want. And then even if you're not perfect in your speaking skills, there is a chance that they can look away from that small thing because they know you're going to be working harder. Number two is practice, practice, practice. Interviews are like a lot of other exams. Sometimes interviews are just that. They are interviews. They are not a measure of your skill. Now, technical rounds is a different thing altogether. And especially in technical rounds, they're not looking at just at your communication skills. They're looking at your technical prowess. However, to get to the technical round, you usually have to go through a recruiter round. And even sometimes post that technical round, you have to go through maybe, let's say, one or two other teammates, and they try to gauge what kind of a person you are. So for those, practice matters a lot, and even for technical rounds, practice matters a lot. So when I say practice now, I mean mock interviews. And you can practice for mock interviews in front of a mirror, so you don't need to pay money to somebody, but I would definitely suggest practicing mock interviews. There are a ton of apps out there that you can actually try out and do that, let's say 10 to 15 mock interviews, and that should get you in that groove. That should allow you to feel pretty normal. And giving interviews, so there's another point, right? We don't give multiple interviews, let's say like every few months, right? It's once in a while that we have a chance of giving interviews when we are changing our jobs. And that's also one of the big reasons we are unsure about those interviews, even if our English skills might not be up to the par. But there's more at play here. It's not just about feeling comfortable with speaking English. It's about feeling comfortable with the process of giving an interview. And because we don't do as many of those, it's pretty natural to feel nervous about it. And that's what we want to tackle. So we want to make the interview process and that whole feeling very usual for us and very normal for us. And that mock interview is going to help you reach that. Number three is you need to dress for success. So if you're giving physical interview, it's great to wear formals, but you're extremely uncomfortable. So for example, if you don't know if let's say you're going to a physical location to give that interview, let's say it's not on Zoom, and you are going there and you're unsure if there's going to be an AC there, you might want to take a blazer which you can remove and keep it in your hand just in case. So you don't need to dress up in a suit every single time, because a suit is going to make you feel a little bit, tad bit uncomfortable as well. So when we are dressing up for success, we want to dress smartly. you want to dress in a professional manner. However, it does not mean that you have to dress in a suit. So you need to also look at the environment and if you are going to be comfortable in those clothes or not. So for example, most of my interviews that I give when I'm working with a client or consulting with somebody or giving an interview or rather having those initial calls with the client, I usually, instead of my usual t-shirt, which I'm the most comfortable in, I'll have like a polo neck. And with when it comes to the tech industry, it's fine, it's normal. But if I was giving the same first call or first cold call with, let's say, somebody in the traditional banking space or a relatively traditional industry, rather than having a collar polo, I'll have like a half sleeve or maybe a full sleeve shirt with my sleeves rolled up. And of course, because these are Zoom calls, I'm gonna have my pair of shorts underneath. But if this was a physical interview, I'm gonna of course have a pair of trousers, and I'll make sure that those clothes make me feel comfortable, because the last thing that we want is, we are already nervous, we are not sure about our English speaking skills anyways, so we are running low on confidence because of a ton of other things. So let's try and take care of everything else, so there's only one thing to worry about. Number 4 is, nervousness is fine. It's okay to feel nervous because you've gone through the mock interviews, you've talked to yourself in the mirror, and you've practiced your English beforehand. Now, if you have to sprinkle a few sentences of Hindi or your native language or whatever the second language of the person in front of you is, it is okay and they're going to be fine with that. However, you need to understand one thing, friends. Nervousness is fine, it is normal, it is nothing to be afraid of. In fact, if you are nervous, it means that you actually value the opportunity enough to feel strongly about it, and that's what nervousness actually really is. So it's okay to feel nervous. Now, when it comes to actual English speaking skills, you would have practiced your speaking. I've made multiple videos which actually go over listening as well as speaking skills. Check those videos out and you'll get a lot of practice routines, etc., that you can follow. So let's say your interview is in a couple of weeks. It might make sense that for those couple of weeks you are speaking English a little bit more often, just so that you are used to the whole thing, as opposed to out of nowhere going into the interview and starting to speak English. And that can sometimes get us off track of whatever it is that's going on. So that's one. Second, when it comes to actually speaking in English in interviews, use simple language. Stay away from technical jargon as much as you can. And when I say technical jargon, I mean very specifically extremely difficult words to pronounce. Go for simple words, go for simple English. For example, in this video, I haven't used any like special word, and I haven't tried to convince you guys that my vocabulary is very strong. I haven't thrown 5,000 difficult words for each of those words, and you're not having to open up a dictionary, right? I'm using very simple English and I'm putting my point across. That's what we want in an interview. Not just in an interview, but in life in general. It's great to use those interesting words time and again, but usually it can also come off as that you have a pretty strong ego. So we don't want that. We want a very normal kind of vibe around us, and using simple vocabulary, simple English makes the most sense. You don't need to use complex sentences, complex structure, whatever. Don't even go into those tenses, etc. It's just fine. And to be honest, there have been a lot of interviews where I've started speaking English, the founder on the other end starts speaking Hindi, and we start moving between Hindi, between English, between Hindi, between English, and it is pretty normal, especially if you're in the tech side of things, and if you're giving an interview in a startup, they do expect you to speak English, but it's fine. Now, second thing that you need to understand, friends, is also if it's a marketing role, if it's a sales role, which is usually like let's say it's a customer facing role, you are going to be expected to have good communication chops. And that's where the career training and all of those things come into play. But if it's a technical role, you're not expected to have the best communication chops, just enough that you can actually, without causing issues, communicate the point, communicate what's going on. That's enough. That's what is expected of you usually. And I've been with great and amazing programmers, in fact CTOs, who are not extremely comfortable in English, and most of their conversation happened in Hindi, but they were amazing developers, and they led team of developers like crazy, with great production, great products that they've actually come out with. So to be honest, English is great, but you don't need to take it to heart. You don't need to feel extremely nervous about it, because it's fine. And lastly guys, rejection, it's going to be a part of the whole process. There is no way that you're not going to get rejected in for one or the other reason from multiple companies. It's fine, and it happens to every single one. A lot of times we look at YouTube videos, we look at what everybody else is talking about, and they say, I did 5 interviews and I got 5 offers. I did 7 interviews and I got 20 offers. And it's crazy. Stop listening to a lot of these YouTube videos that actually give you the rosy picture, because that's not how world works. You know it, I know it in our hearts, that that's not how the world works. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people would have gotten those kind of offers, but most of us are going to face rejection. Most of us are going to face rejection in the application process. We are also going to face rejection in the interview process. I've gotten that multiple times, and I still do. And that's a part of the process. So we shouldn't let those failures or those rejections actually hold us back. We need to push through those things and move forward. So that's that for today's video. I hope these tips actually help you out to do better in your interviews, especially where you're actually supposed to be speaking in English. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, bye and take care.